Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mavericks podcast. Today, we're joined by Sid Sriram, the founder and CEO of NexGen AI Solutions. So it's a company known for delivering custom AI solutions, transforming industries from e-commerce to finance. And Sid's past success wasn't your typical tech founder story. After moving to Miami with just $2,000, Sid worked multiple jobs and competed as a bodybuilder, building a unique discipline that would later fuel his entrepreneurial drive. Today, Sid's here to share his journey, the disciplined routines that drive his success, and offer some valuable lessons for anyone looking to make a significant impact in their field. So welcome very much. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So what I'd like to start with really is just get a little bit about what you're doing now and what NexGen AI are offering. What is it that you do for people now?
So my company, NexGen AI Solutions, I started it around 3 years ago now. At first, it was just a one-man operation. I had skills in AI programming, and I was doing things as a solo freelancer. And then I got very fortunate to get into the AI industry before a lot of the media hype and popularity came in. So because of that, that put me in a great market positioning to take advantage of all the demand that we've seen come in over the past year and a half. So started as just myself, and then eventually that demand became so large that I couldn't do it all myself. That's when I started building a team around me. And as of right now, we're serving some of the largest companies across the globe. We're developing custom AI solutions across a variety of different industries. Essentially, anytime a company wants to build some AI software for their business, my team would come in and build that for them. And then we do everything from consulting to figure out the best project for their use case, to developing the software, to deploying, to helping them secure investing and get their product out to market.
So it's so much that AI can do now. And like I say, we're seeing just a boom across all industries now. But is there a typical kind of product that you deploy? What's the typical customer for you?
We don't have a typical customer, which is what makes this business model great, because we can really serve any particular industry. But there is definitely trends that I've noticed in industries that need it more. Particularly over the past few years, we've been working with a lot of health, medical, pharmaceutical companies, because these are the companies where AI can speed up the process to save patients' lives and have huge impact in the short run of diagnosing diseases, getting medications out to market, and then helping people with various ailments or illnesses to better perform in real life with the assistance of technology.
I remember seeing, I think it must have been in the last week or so, just some AI technology which was diagnosing cancer so much earlier than what's been able to be done traditionally. So yeah, it's definitely a great field to be getting into. Just, you mentioned a second ago about getting into it a few years before all the hype. Can you take us back to that beginning period and what inspired you to get into NexGen AI solution?
Sure. So I think I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset of wanting to start a company, but I didn't necessarily have the proper direction to go into. Taking back to my younger years, I tried various different businesses. I tried creating a personal training business, e-commerce businesses. None of these worked, and they were all failed businesses. And then the turning point for me was end of 2021. I was working a typical 9-to-5 corporate job for a company within pharmaceutical space. And at this time, while I was working there, I was making a measly salary, something like $40,000 a year, like pennies. And I realized how much the company was making as a result of my skill set. And I realized how massive of a value discrepancy there was. So I thought to myself, I don't need to develop a new skill set. I can just take my existing skill set and then be on the different side of the equation and develop those sales skill sets. And then I can multiply my income by 10, 100x. And once I realized that, there was a light bulb went on and off in my head. And there was a spiral of different things that happened. Actually, I ended up getting fired from that job. And that's when I kind of decided to just like go all in on my business. And around that same point in time, I got fired. A month later, I took whatever savings I had and I moved to Miami because there was a rapidly growing tech industry in the area. And I was able to connect with a lot of prospective clients. And then I developed that sales skill set at the same time. And it was kind of definitely a combination of many factors working together that set me up to start, instead of just developing the software myself, be on the position of like selling it as well. And
So I was just going to ask on,
yeah,
because you mentioned about moving to Miami to specifically do this and trying to build up that client list. How did you get the confidence to do that? It's quite a big step to do such a big move. And when you are, I believe, bootstrapping it yourself as well. So it's quite a big jump. So what gave you the confidence to be able to do that?
I would say at that point in time in my life, it was just like there was nothing to lose. And I think that a lot of people, when you get stuck in a comfort zone, then there's no incentive to change. So take, for example, someone who's maybe been in an established career for 10 years, they're getting a pension, they're getting a steady paycheck, they're getting that health insurance, whatever benefits. Like, even if they have the potential and skills in themselves to achieve far more, there's no incentive for them to actually go out and take the risk to achieve it because they've grown so comfortable to their typical routine. And at that point in time in my life, I essentially was like a single person with no job. So there's literally no downside, because in the worst case scenario, even if it failed, there wasn't really a downside to it because I could just return to what I was doing in the past. So that's what gave me like that fuck it mentality. And I was just like, there's absolutely nothing to lose. Might as well just go all in.
Just intrigued around the mindset in bodybuilding, how that's transferred to your mindset in business. Because I know you've been competitive bodybuilding. Do you think that's something that's given you some drive, or what have you brought across from bodybuilding to business?
I would say both are highly correlated, and you'll notice among high achievers across all different industries, there's a very strong correlation between those who are physically fit and those who are highly successful in the business world. And I think that comes down to two key factors. One is just like the mental clarity you get out of it. Once you take care of your body, you're essentially feeding more nutrients to your brain. Your brain is able to perform at a higher level. You're able to make more intelligent decisions. You're able to take quicker decisions, and that benefits you in really all areas of life. And aside from just the mental clarity, the discipline is a huge component. When it comes to bodybuilding, I have to maintain a very high degree of detail when it comes to everything, like tracking every single workout, tracking all the food that I'm eating down to the single calories. And that high degree of scrutiny is really goes hand in hand with business, because I have to be tracking the KPIs of the business, making sure all the employees are meeting their performance metrics. I have to be tracking the finances of the company, making sure our monthly cash flows at a certain amount, making sure our costs are a certain amount. So it's given me that eye for numbers, that eye for tracking numbers on a daily basis, which I think is so crucial.
I can see the correlation between bodybuilding and building a business. And it sounds like it sounds like a relatively smooth journey from moving to Miami, but was it all smooth and starting that business? What were some of the hiccups that you faced starting up your company?
Yeah, definitely very many different hiccups along the way. Lost a lot of money along the way, but things worked out in the end. Just for example, one of the main ones. So when I first started, it's very common in the technology industry, especially with newer AI companies, to go the route of securing funding, which is you go to a venture capital firm, you get maybe like 100, 200K and give up like 20, 30% of your company. Those are like some typical numbers. But I knew for the start, didn't want to go that way because the second you give up equity to your company, it's not your company anymore. And I've had friends and colleagues who have gone that route, and they, even though it gives you a leg up in the short run, in the long run, it comes back to bite you because you constantly have this investor breathing down your neck, telling you what to do at all times. And essentially becomes another job in that sense because you have someone else breathing down your neck at all times. So I knew like going the funding route was not for me. So the main challenge I had at the start was just building capital. So I knew if I wasn't going to take funding, I had to bootstrap it with my own capital. So that was when I was working like 3 different jobs at the same time, 7 days a week, just so I could start saving up some initial capital to invest into building a website, marketing, all these like startup costs for a business. And for those first couple of months, definitely like my business was going negative for a while. And I was just keeping it afloat through working multiple jobs at the same time to keep myself going.
See,
And
I was just going to say, ask when you say you were negative for months at the beginning, what was the desire to keep going? Was it more about actually you have to because you need to claw this money back, or what was it that kept driving you at that period?
I would say the main driving force to keep going despite working so hard, I was feeling like burned out all the time from working all these jobs at the same time, trying to reinvest it. It was very discouraging to see like I was investing so much time and money and it was just going negative. But the main thing that kept me going was just having that vision for myself. I knew like 5, 10 years down the line, I was part of one of maybe the fastest growing industries of this current time period. So I knew if I just kept at it, then this company can become a $1 billion company down the line. And I think just keeping my eyes on the bigger picture is what always kept me going. And I do believe in like manifestation to a strong extent. I think like when you have a clear picture of where you're going to be in a couple years' time, what type of person you're going to be, then the universe does conspire to like make things happen in your favor when you have that vision for yourself.
And with that in mind, so you're talking about having this vision and where you want to go. Have you got clear direction now? Have you got your aims, missions, and objectives for the next few years?
Definitely. And I think the main thing that I'm focusing on right now is just building a team of A players around me. Because the number one thing you see common along all the biggest companies in the world is like the founder, the CEO, he's not doing it all himself. He's usually has a team of like highly capable executives who are handling the day-to-days of the business. And if I can build a similar team for myself, then I'll be able to take myself out of the business, have it run on its own, even grow on its own. That would be amazing.
Is there any particular techniques or tips you can give for getting those right people? I think particularly with a startup company, when it is, like you say, starting from one person, it's difficult knowing who's going to be right now and who's going to be right for 6 months to a year's time. So have you got any practices you put in place to ensure you're getting the right people from the beginning?
Great question, because actually one of the biggest mistakes I made at the start was hiring the wrong people. And that cost me like tens of thousands of dollars. So at the start, in my first year of business, when I became ready to hire my first couple employees, I needed some engineers to work with me. So what I did is I posted a job posting. I took some people who had good resumes, like they had the skills on paper that they knew how to do the job well. But once I actually started hiring them and paying them, that turned out to not be the case because their work ethic was definitely not up to par with the type of information that they had put on their resume. And that ended up losing me a lot of money in the start. But what that taught me is that it doesn't really matter what someone has on their resume, what skills they have on paper, because you can teach anyone skills, but what you can't teach someone is their values and their work ethic. So after having that learning experience of hiring the wrong people, I realized that if I focus instead on hiring people based on my own value system and their work ethic, that'll give me a much better outcome in the end. So I really sat down by myself. I wrote down what are some values that I really care about in people that I like to work with. And some of those that I wrote down are a growth mindset is very important to me. Accountability. Someone needs to be accountable for taking care of their work when no one is watching, taking ownership of their projects, as well as respect for themselves as well as those they're working with. So once I really sat down and became clear on what values are really important to me, it became a lot easier for me to find A players because I stopped even caring about what skills they had on paper and instead just focused on asking them questions to figure out their own value system and see if it aligned with mine.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. And it's easy to think everyone should have the same values, like say respect and the ones you've mentioned. But actually, when you put your top 5 down on paper, 2 different people can have great qualities or great beliefs. But if they don't align, you are going to end up just not quite gelling and having those friction issues where people's work values don't align. So no, I think it's a really good way of doing that. So thank you for sharing. And you have certainly started to grow as well. I know you've got a number of employees now. So how long did it take you from going to being in the negative, from starting the company to getting to the positive?
I would say it took around 8 months since inception before I started trending positively. And then once I started trending positively, it started shooting up because it's amazing the momentum you get from that first big deal kicking in. Then all of a sudden from that connects you to another one, which connects you to a third. And then from there, it's just been up and up. And I think that you need to go negative in the start of the business. And that's why I can't remember the exact statistic, but I think a majority of businesses fail within their first year in business because I think most people aren't willing to stick it through those painful times of being in the negative before you finally see things pick up in your favor.
I do feel it's like having children. People can tell you how difficult it is and how tired you're going to be, but until you're actually living it, there's just no real way of understanding it, I don't think. And I think that is the same as being a founder. It is hard work. There's no getting around it. And it's a lot of pressure. And like I say, it's financial stresses, trying to get positive. So looking back on your initial decision to bootstrap the company, are you still confident that's the right decision? And is that something you're still looking to stay aligned to?
Yeah, I'm still very much confident that that was the right decision to take. And actually, funny enough, once your business starts picking up, then people start reaching out to me now asking to invest in me. And it's the whole dynamic is flipped because when you're starting out, you're going out and asking people for investment and now they're coming and offering it to me. But I still am steadfast on not accepting any outside funding right now because even though it might give some short-term growth, I don't want to give up that equity in the long run.
And as you're talking about, you start picking up bigger projects. Can you walk us through one of the innovative projects that you've led that's helped start building your success? Is there a particular example that comes to mind for you?
Sure, there's one project that started recently within the past 6 months, and this is one of the most amazing ones that I've worked on within the healthcare field. And it's essentially we're using AI to help people who are paralyzed or have neurological ailments to operate computers like everyone else can. So say, for example, someone doesn't have usage of their arms, or perhaps they can't speak, but they'd like to do the things that we take for granted, like answer their emails, watch stuff on YouTube, shop on Amazon, whatever that is. So essentially what this AI software does is essentially it's connected to a brain computer interface. It's essentially like a headband that a person wears on their head, and it essentially reads their brain waves. And then the AI component of it is it basically makes sense of those brain waves to convert it into actions on the person's computer to allow a person who may not be able to operate a computer normally to browse the internet, open applications, do anything else.
It's just incredible project. When you have projects like that, how do you actually build that relationship with your client? Do you do much outreach for sales, or is that typically clients come to you? I'm just interested about how your sales strategy works.
It's definitely a mix of both. I've definitely found far more success out of the inbound leads than the outbound, because I would say definitely when I was first starting out the business, like no one knew who I was. I had zero credibility. So I had to be reaching out to people constantly. But then over time, my credibility grew and grew. I started building some personal branding for myself, started getting publications about myself, going and speaking at conferences. And then once those things started working in my favor, then the dynamic switched. And like nowadays, I have people reaching out to me, offering me opportunities.
I love that project, by the way. I think that's groundbreaking work. So I'm really interested to see where that goes. When you did start the company, we talked a lot about money, but it sounds like there's actually some really satisfying bits you're getting from doing the work you're doing as well.
Definitely, yeah. That's why I love this project working with disabled people so much, because when we're testing and I'm seeing like the people who are actually using it, seeing their eyes light up, that it's actually making a huge tangible difference in their life. That's what makes me fulfillment more than any amount of money I could make.
Yeah, it's literally life-changing things. So how is it that you measure success now?
I would say, would you say on like a personal skill or like a business skill?
I think both really. So yeah, I'm just intrigued as to what it is that drives you and motivates you now. So what is it? Where do you find that fulfillment?
I would say, I'll say both. So for the personal side of things, I basically measure success across like three pillars. Like I call them like the three F's: fitness, family, finances. So fitness wise, am I getting in better shape? Do I have more mental clarity? Do I have healthier habits? On the family side, am I building stronger relationships with those around me? Am I taking care of my family? Those are two very important things for me. And then finally, the financial side, am I improving my finances on a day-to-day basis? And then on the business side of things, I would say those are very similar, also connected to that fitness, family, finances. Whereas instead of family, it's more like my team wise, am I helping my teammates grow? Am I putting my team members in a position to succeed? Am I improving the finances on a month to month basis? And is the company contributing to the world in a positive way?
And just talk about focus on the team for a second. You mentioned about making sure your team are able to develop and you've got a good environment for your team. But is there one tip that you can give us about leading a team? You've seen yours grow from a single person up to the company you've got now. So what tips or advice would you give to people who are looking to grow their own teams?
Sure. So I'm personally a big fan. Two people that I look up to in the business world are two tech entrepreneurs. Elon Musk, everyone knows him, as well as Pavel Durov. He's the founder and CEO of Telegram. And what I like about both of their philosophies is they're big proponents of hiring small, high performing teams, which we were discussing briefly before the call started, is that a very high performing team member can do so much more for your company than 10 average performers. So one thing that I learned from Pavel Durov, founder of Telegram, is like, he doesn't even have a job application for his company. You can't apply for it. He does everything through like challenges. Like in order to even join his company, you have to like complete a challenge to prove your competency. And then that allows him to filter out who are like the highest performers in the world for that specific skill set. And then that gets you the initial hire in the door. But then the next challenge after you hire them is like, how do you get them to keep performing once they're in your company? Because you want to make the working environment enjoyable for them as well. And I think the main thing I've done in that regard is like investing in my team members, because once they're in the company, you don't want them to stop improving. So I do things like I have a company funded gym membership for everyone, because I want everyone, because I know for myself that investing in my health and personal fitness allowed me to grow so much. So I know if I do the same for my team members, then I put them in a position to succeed as well. So I invest in their physical health that way. I also offer a company funded stipend for people to invest in their own courses, book, and going to conferences, because I want them to improve their own skill sets as well. And by giving these benefits to my team members, the benefits are twofold. First thing is that they're growing their skills, which is beneficial to me as well, because if they become more skilled at their profession, then they're able to do a better job for me. And second of all, it's all about keeping them happy in their career, and that makes them want to stay. And in my opinion, it's far better to have someone stay with the company for a long period of time, several years, than to have to fire or rehire people, which is a huge time and money expense. Yeah, I would say it's to come back to your question, I would say it's a combination of getting the right person in the door based on a high skill set. And then second of all, treating them very well, offering them benefits to keep them there for a long time.
And with your team, do you have any remote working? Is it all in person? What's the setup that you've got?
Yeah, I'm completely remote. Right now, I'm working from my apartment. I have employees in the US. I have some over in Asia as well, in India and the Philippines. Because with technology companies, since we're mostly working over the internet anyways, there isn't really need for in-person.
Have you faced any challenges with having completely remote working?
I would say definitely the biggest challenge is with communication. And this comes back to the story I mentioned earlier about how at the very start, I hired some people who didn't perform to my expectation. And a big reason for that was just a lack of communication. So I gave these people some deliverables. The timeline wasn't met. There was a lack of communication, and that ended up with their project deliverables completely falling off track. So the fix for that, I think, is twofold. It's one, like I mentioned before, that having people with the right values join in the first place, people who are communicative to begin with, so there isn't much training to even be done in that regard. And second of all, is instituting regular communication to build the rapport with the team members once they join, because we don't have that same like bonding that we get talking to someone face to face over the internet. So instead, we have those kind of regular communications. I typically have like a once a day meeting with the entire team, and then like once a week meeting with individual team members to keep the whole company aligned on the vision, which is what I do in the whole team meeting. And then in the individual meetings, I'll work through like individual team members' concerns.
Yeah, I've definitely found similar as well with communication. It's definitely eased having everyone in the same office. But like you say, there's definitely that drawback of not being able to lean onto a much wider pool of candidates as well. So it's definitely getting the right balance. I'm really intrigued, as being an AI company yourselves, in what ways do you use AI within your company to streamline processes and enhance your business?
Yeah, in a variety of different ways. So at least, for example, for outreach and sales wise, I'm using some AI softwares like Dripify for actually outreach. So I don't have any salesperson or myself manually sending out messages to prospects. It's all like AI generated. And then, so I have this software constantly sending out like hundreds of messages and emails per day. And then only once I get a response, then I might take it up manually and respond to it myself. But otherwise, that saves a ton of time from just like sending messages one by one to different people. Other than that, for the actual fulfillment of our software development, we're also using a variety of different AI tools to speed up development. We're using ChatGPT all the time. That's a huge time saver. And then aside from that, we're also using softwares like builder.io. It's a neat software that could take a design that you have for an app or any software and turn it into code. And then we're also using another software called Cursor, which is great for automatically developing code using AI.
You're right in the heart of AI now, and you have been for a few years. How do you see AI evolving over the next few years?
First of all, it's such an extremely rapid moving industry, and it's like, who knows how good it'll get. But personally, I think that AI isn't going to take people's jobs, but rather the people who are using AI are going to take the jobs of those who aren't. So I think the best thing that people can do from an individual level is to familiarize themselves with the tools that are out there and see what they can use to their advantage. Other than that, as for the industry as a whole, I think that we're going to move into like a highly automated environment. What I mean by that is like we have these things called AI agents, which is essentially an AI that's trained to do a specific job. Like you can have an AI agent that acts like a teacher, for example, or one that acts for a nurse. And these are becoming very popular and being sold all across the world right now. And the more like these AI agents become better and better, it's unfortunately going to displace a lot of jobs. So I do think that AI agents are going to be the future. We'll have a future where if you need like medical help, you might talk to a nurse agent, or if you need like a student needing help on a class, you might talk to a tutor or teacher agent. And one possibility that I see the world going as these agents become more and more widely adopted is that we may enter a future where there aren't enough jobs in the market to satisfy the population. So people receive instead like a universal basic income to live on. That's one possibility.
I was going to lead on to similar questions really, because I know there is some scaremongering around AI and potential, can't think of the right way of putting it, but downfall that could be created by AI. Do you buy into any of that at all?
Personally, I don't let myself get affected at all by it because I know that with my skill set and drive that I can't be replaced by an AI. And I think it comes down to even right now, if a person isn't actively working on improving their skills, becoming a better value to the marketplace, then they find themselves in lowly paid jobs or unemployed. And that's not going to change when AI becomes more widespread. It's still going to be the same thing, that the people who take the initiative to build their skill set, learn more, learn how to use these tools to their advantage will be able to take advantage of it and grow to better careers and so on. Whereas the people who don't will be left behind. So I think that really on a broader scale, like the world isn't going to change much. At the end of the day, the people who take advantage of opportunity will always profit from it, and the people that don't will be left behind.
One of the things you said there about people who utilize it are essentially going to thrive. So if there is a company or person out there who wants to start utilizing AI, or want to incorporate AI into operations, is there a key piece of advice that you could give now?
Sure, I think AI is really good at automating any repetitive tasks. And I think that the more automations you have in your business, the faster it can scale. And I think the easiest place to start is literally just to ask ChatGPT, like, how can I use AI in my blank business? And that'll probably give you way more ideas than I can in this call right now.
Yeah, it's ChatGPT is an amazing tool. So I use it all the time. I think I learned literally 2-3 days ago how to actually create a custom GPT. And that's one of the things I've set up to, like you say, just do some of those repetitive tasks, and it's saved me hours already per week. So it's definitely something to be leaned on and used. So if there's aspiring entrepreneurs looking to bootstrap a tech company, what are some essential steps or mindset that you think they should adopt from the beginning?
Yeah, I think bootstrapping versus getting funding, it definitely takes a far more disciplined mindset, because with limited capital, you have to be far more intelligent with how you deploy that capital. But I think it teaches you how to be smart with your money a lot better. So I think for an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to bootstrap their own company, whether that's technology or not, the first thing is, I think, validating your idea with as little money as possible. So if you have an idea for a business, it's not a business until someone is willing to pay for it. I would recommend people in that kind of situation to not even invest into developing their product or whatever. It's just to talk to your potential customer and figure out that there is a need. If I was developing a software for podcasters, just for example, I wouldn't actually develop the software first. I would talk to 100 podcasters, be like, is this a solution that you would find useful? If so, like, how much would you be willing to pay for it? And then if someone says, yes, I would find it useful, I would pay like $100 for it, then you'd be like, great, I'll put you on our beta list. And as soon as it gets released, I'll send it over to you. And that's allows you to start getting customers without investing a cent yourself. And that's the main strategy in the technology industry as well. Sometimes a lot of tech companies, they'll even say like, hey, if you pay for the product before release, then you get a discounted rate. So that way you're building a customer base, you're building revenue without investing a single dollar yourself. And that's the strategy I used as well. You build the customers first before you build the product or service. And that way you're building a business that generates revenue from day one.
To assist with your mindset as well, have you got any particular practice that you do every day to make sure you're in the right mindset to set you up for it?
Definitely. I think like my morning routine is the most important part of my day. And I have it written down on a whiteboard right here, just so I never forget. And it's like, I always try to wake up early in the morning before the sun rises, so that way I can have some time to myself to really reflect before the day gets going and I start getting bombarded by like text and emails and calls. So I start my day before the sun rises. I start it with some physical activity. I always like to get a workout in. It gets me like the positive endorphins in the morning and really sets me in a good frame of mind to tackle the rest of the day ahead of me. Once I finish my workout, I'll come back home. I like to do some positive reading in the morning. I don't read like chapters and chapters, but I like reading like self-improvement books or like philosophy books. I'll read like maybe like a few pages or a chapter of one. And then after that, I'll also do a little bit of journaling. Also, typically what I do when I journal is I'll write out like my goals for the day, and then also remind myself of what my broader vision for the next few years are. And I think, like I mentioned like earlier in the call, like, I think never forgetting what the broader vision is always keeps me motivated and aligned. Because on those like hard days when I'm feeling like burned out or stressed out, having that picture of the vision in my mind like always keeps me going. So definitely like starting my day with working out, reading, and journaling has been like a key part of my growth, both personally and in business. And I plan to keep doing it my whole life.
The reading you are doing, is there one book that comes to mind that's had the biggest influence on you?
Sure. My favorite book I ever read it's called Relentless by Tim Grover. I finished that book a while ago, but it was the best book I ever read because the author of it, Tim Grover, he was the coach of some of the greatest basketball players of all time, both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. And he wasn't their like basketball coach, like skills wise, he was their mindset coach. And I really like that book because since the author Tim Grover spent so many years working personally with Michael Jordan and Kobe, he was able to figure out like what made their brains tick differently from the rest of the population. And that's what he writes about in that book, like what differentiates the mindset of the elite performing athletes versus everyone else.
Yeah, I've heard very good things
That
about
was
that book.
yeah, it was great. I finished that one a while ago, and currently I'm reading a book called Courage is Calling. It's a book about like Stoic philosophy.
And staying along the same theme, really, if there's one person you could enter into the Mindset Mavericks Hall of Fame, who would it be and why? And this could be somebody you know personally, it could be somebody you look up to and admire.
Sure, I would say one person whose mindset I really admire and I've learned a lot of things from is one of my mentors by the name of Dan Martell. He's a very accomplished tech entrepreneur. Perhaps you've heard of him. And he's essentially walked a very similar path as me, which is why I admire him. He also like bootstrapped several tech companies. He exited multiple of them. And now he's an accomplished author. He invests in other companies. And I've had the opportunity to work with him one-on-one for the past few years, and I would attribute a lot of things I've learned to him. So I would definitely think he's a worthwhile contribution to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, really great person you've nominated. And yeah, I know who Dan is well. I think I follow him on a few social media platforms as well. And just as we're coming to the end, I wanted to ask if there's one lesson or one insight you would like listeners to take away from this episode, what would it be?
I think one insight that anyone can benefit from is to always remain a student no matter what. I think that's been the biggest contributor to any success that I've had, is to always remain humble and keep learning, because really at the end of the day, I don't know shit. Like there's so much knowledge in the world to keep building off of that we have to always keep building our knowledge at all times, never get complacent, always keep studying and getting better.
Fantastic place to end. Just always be a lifelong learner. So yeah, I think that's a great lesson. Sid, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate you sharing your insights and your journey as well in business. If anyone wants to follow up with yourself, see what you're doing and find out a bit more about NexGen AI solutions, what should they do or where should they go?
Sure. I think the best platforms to connect with me on are Instagram. My username is Sid X Sriram. And then LinkedIn as well. I'm active on there. You can just search my name, Sid Sriram, and you'll find me on there.
That's great. Thanks very much for coming on. I'll put all the details in the show notes as well if anyone wants to connect with you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, it was great, John.